My Lords, I thank the Noble Lady Baroness McIntosh of Pickering for securing this debate, and I'm going to focus my comments on the second part of the Noble Lady's question on the border target operating model. In part, that's because on Tuesday morning, purely by chance, as the model was going into operation, I was joining an official from the Horticultural Trade Association on a visit to Rochford Nursery in Hatfield. So I was hearing live firsthand the reports that were coming in from that environmental horticulture sector about what was happening as the controls came into place. One of the things that I learnt from that, actually, I should first declare that I was making that visit as part of my fellowship with the Industry and Parliament Trust, so I've now made that declaration. One of the things I was hearing that morning was the way in which many companies had both pre-ordered supplies coming in to make sure they beat the deadline or have delayed orders for a couple of weeks. So I'd like to ask the Noble Lord the Minister if he's aware just how much the government is putting this model into operation now, but many companies in the horticultural sector, and I've no doubt the broader sector as well, have actually ensured there's a much slower flow at this moment now, but it's going to ramp up over the coming weeks. And is the government actually ready for that ramp up? One of the other things I also heard, that even before the model officially came into operation, there'd been considerable confusion with the paperwork. If customs agents ticked the wrong box, they were being pre-charged for the inspections before the inspections had actually started. And more than that, the cost for the inspection was being charged to the customs agents when it should have been charged to the actual companies. And they're then going to add 10% to those charges as a handling charge. So I think that kind of gets at the complexity that's particularly difficult for small and medium enterprises are facing in dealing with all of this. And I'm going to focus primarily on the environmental horticultural sector, which is, of course, so vital in greening our urban areas, expanding our agroforestry and generally contributing to public health. Because more than 90% of our tree and plant growers, members of the HTA, import plant products. Many of them are plug plants, and I was being shown some of these plug plants during my visit, and they are absolutely tiny and extremely prone to drying out. And I'm told that the warehouses, Sevington and the other warehouses, have no temperature controls. Sometimes these are moved in temperature-controlled trucks, but if they're held up in the border control post, they can very quickly simply die and become worthless. And some of the other issues in terms of the actual handling. Members of the HTA have been told that there is only forklift handling in the warehouses, so that the warehouses can only handle palletised loads. Now, many of the plants being imported, some of them, and certainly the higher value ones, are very large plants which are too large to go on pallets, which are very carefully packed into lorries by expert packers at the European end. To unpack them and repack them again is an extremely skilled job. And I think there was a general feeling that the government was just going to have to ignore those loads because it doesn't have the capacity to deal with them. But that obviously is a biosecurity risk. And also a question to the Noble Lord the Minister, I'll understand if he may need to write on this, but the information I received, that is, if a lorry is directed to go to Sevington for an inspection and it simply doesn't go, at the moment no one knows what the penalty is. No one knows what's going to happen if the driver confuses their instructions, doesn't follow the instructions. What happens then? There seems to be a total blank on that so far as the industry is concerned, which is a bit of a hole given the whole process has started. I do just want to raise one other issue, picking up on points made by the Noble Lord Trees and the Noble Lord de Clifford about biosecurity, particularly in the animal area. And we are in a situation where there's now significant concern from the US about H5N1, highly pathogenic avian influenza, which has been detected very widespread now in cattle herds and detected in the milk in the US, 1 in 5 samples of US milk. And the US has just this week started testing beef to see what incidence it's finding. Now, my understanding is, I'm relying on a report from the Telegraph here, that there has indeed been a special unit established in DEFRA to look into this. But there is no plans to test milk or meat in the UK or to test cattle. And I do have to ask the Noble Lord the Minister, in the context where we're talking about biosecurity, why are we not doing that taking that obvious precautionary approach of doing that testing? And I would like to echo the remarks made by both of the Noble Lords earlier, that any reduction in testing, particularly of animal products, inspection of animal products, is an area of grave concern.